الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي آمين يا رب العالمين. All the praise and all the glory belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now today and tomorrow are my last two, majalis here. And, as I have promised you that, we'll be speaking about, after the events of, Karbala, what happened in the events, the major events. And so, this year my theme has been, slightly different. It has not been like previously. Previously I, select a particular ayat from the Quran and then we continue, and then we do the proper lectures. But this year, because of the time constraint and also because I was not going to be here for many nights, I decided to look at, certain historical events that occurred. And that is the reason. But tomorrow then, we'll, inshallah, the climax, when we are speaking about the after events, tomorrow's will be, the climax, when inshallah I will have the chance as well to, inshallah, to participate in the real, tragedy, that occurred. Because after here, then I do get chances elsewhere where I can express. But here as well I want to express, and this will, inshallah, maybe tomorrow, inshallah wa ta'ala. Now, history actually shows us very clearly that, whenever people, with little faith or no faith, acquire influence and power over and beyond the necessities of life, they change. They begin to indulge in immense luxuries for the desire of pleasure, enjoyment, and also boasting. History, shows us very clearly that they begin to get increasingly mean-spirited. The path that they take, leads them to the path of decay. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lets them increase. In the Quran there are, several ayat that, this happens, and when people do not turn back, then, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then leaves them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then lets them increase in their sins, and eventually Allah's justice manifests itself and they are utterly destroyed. Now you see, the ulama point to the Quran and quote ayat number 16 from surah number 17, surah Bani Israel, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَإِذَا أَرَدْنَا أَن نُهْلِكَ قَرْيَةً أَمَرْنَا مُتْرَ فِيهَا فَفَسَقُوا فِيهَا فَحَقَّ عَلَيْهِ الْقَوْلُ فَدَمَّرْنَاهَا تَدْمِيرًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals and tells us that when we decide to destroy a population, we first send a definite order to those among them who are given the good things of this life, and yet they transgress, so that the word is proved true against them. Then we destroy them totally, utterly. So, based on that, we see very clearly that the material progress, that was achieved by the Umayyads to Yazid's time is undisputable by all historians in the West and in the East. The riches and the splendor, that they had, it had become a competition, with the Roman and the Persian empires. They had become so rich, filthily rich, better than the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire in the riches and building the empire, which was the largest empire that the world had ever seen at that time, by that time. But when it came to self-indulgence, very clearly history shows us that sensuality and all kinds of other vices, they far exceeded even then the Roman and the Persian emperors. Even in the civilization of the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire, the self-indulgence was not as great as it was in the time of the Umayyads. This is very clear in the history. So the decline was, drawing very near, and the beginning and the ending of it was, Yazid. So Yazid was the beginning and the ending of it. The totally unjust shahadat of Imam Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam. Can you salawat, please? Provided a very, very clear authority for people to go against him. So, and we see then, that when this, atrocities occur, Karbala with the shahadat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. From the, survivors of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, there were no regrets. They were pleased with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given them. On the contrary, those who were not with them, those who either refused to go to them or who were not with them, or those, who rejected, who first invited Imam Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam, Kufans, and then when they actually rejected him, totally, it is now now they began to feel totally ashamed after what happened in Karbala. So acknowledging, the faults and trying to make amends, best example who made amends very quickly was, Hazrat Hur. Hur, and later on after Karbala tragedy, there was a revolution that occurred. And one of the greatest revolutions was, by the Tawabun movement. Who were the Tawabun? Why are they called Tawabun? Tawabin was a group that they felt so bad. Many of them were Kufans who had invited Imam Hussein to come. And then they rejected him. Now they begin to feel so bad that they wanted to give their life. They wanted to do the tawbah. That is why they are called Tawabun. So they started this, this movement, Tawabun. Others were, offering, excuses, for the conduct. Example of that is Abdullah al-Jufi, for example, Imam Hussein ibn Ali salam, when he was going towards, Karbala, he met on the way this person, Abdullah al-Jufi, and Imam asked him if he wants to join. And he said, that he was very busy in his business and he would not be able to make it, and therefore he did not. Now he begins to feel very, very, very sad that, that it was quite easy for him. It was only an excuse, that he gave. Others, began to shift blame to others, and they began to lament for the most atrocious crimes that they committed. Several examples of that, for example, Qurra bin Qais. Qurra bin Qais was, lamenting, that he did not know that Hur was joining Imam Hussein alayhi salam, otherwise he too would have joined with Hur. So he was in the army of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, and, he did not join Hur. Then we have got example of, another person by the name of Shis bin Rabi. He was an important commander in Ibn Sa'd's army, and he was reported to have said, God will do no good, Allah will do no good to the people of this country. How atrocious was it that for 5 years we fought on the side of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam and his son, Al-Hassan ibn Ali alayhi salam, and then we joined the progeny of Muawiyah and Ziyad in making an assault against Imam Hussein alayhi salam. who for his personal accomplishments was superior to everybody on the earth, that Imam Hussein was superior to everybody on the earth. This was an aberration, he says, which remains unequaled. Then, there were several other, instances. For example, a dialogue between Ayyab, a person by the name of Ayub Haywani, who killed Hur's horse. But the greatest criminal of all the criminals was, Umar ibn Saad, who said in lamenting, he began to lament, and he was lamenting, and he said to his friend, "No traveler will arrive at his destination heading to such an evil end as me." Even greater criminal was Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad himself. He had sent forces to Karbala and had ordered Ibn Sa'd to commit the act. He began blaming everything on Yazid. And I told you, I think actually, yesterday, that his wife actually told him, "You are going to kill the grandson of Rasulullah," his wife. And he gave the reply to his wife, "What can we do? Rai Qurrat Aini. I've been promised the governorship of Rai. We may think how happy we will be." He did not get it. The promise, the Umayyads did not fulfill their promise. It is, quite amazing. But the greatest criminal was Yazid himself. For all the things that he did, leading to the tragedy, he is clearly responsible to have committed. So although at first he, rejoiced, but when he saw the signs of revolution brewing against him, this is what he said. He said, "Alas, alas, by putting Hussein ibn Ali as-salam to death, Abdullah ibn Ziyad disgraced me and made me the object of hatred in the eyes of Muslims. He has sown the seeds of enmity and rancor against me in the hearts. The good and bad alike among Muslims look upon Hussein's assassination as the vilest crime and detest me to be a man." Then he cursed Abdullah ibn Ziyad, saying that, "May Allah curse him." So, he says, alas, and by putting Hussein ibn Ali as-salam to death, he has disgraced me and made me the object of hatred in the eyes of Muslims. He has sown the seeds of enmity and rancor against me in their hearts. The good and bad alike among Muslims look upon Hussein's assassination as the vilest crime and detest me to be a man. And then again he cursed, Ziyad and said, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send lanat upon him. Then, we had this, movement, as I actually told you, the Tawabun. And then, last night we saw that how, Yazid's own son rejected, Khilafat totally. We saw this very clearly. And because he, rejected, the Khilafat, the Sufyanis, the Sufyanid rule ended here. When his son rejected the Sufyan, now Umayyads is now being taken over by the Marwanids, Marwan ibn al-Hakam. His progeny now is now becoming the leader of the Umayyads, and the Yazid and Muawiyah, they are now gone. Quite amazing. Now, so you can really, call it, perhaps a tsunami, the tsunami of great grief and anger in every heart in the Muslim world. And it lasted, we are told, for about 1 century, 100 years. Wives, those who participated in Karbala, their wives actually left them, many wives, people left, Kufa, because Kufans, Muslims in Kufa, invited Imam Hussein, and then they did not support him. Now they begin to feel sorry, so even they left Kufa as well. Many of them even left Kufa. So, it was so. So 75 years then after Karbala, as Basra and Kufa were debated about the relative merits, Kufa was shown as carrying great stain because of the Karbala tragedy. And so you can see even after 75 years, still, it was still, things were still not normal. Many Kufans moved away. Those who were involved in Yazid's army came to be abhorred and disowned. Their wives actually left them. And Yazid began to hear from his own courtiers comments and poems depicting atrocious acts in Karbala by Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. At one point, as we are told in the sources, when someone belonging to Iraq asked Abdullah ibn Umar if there was any kafara, he had gone for for Hajj. Okay, this person. And he meets there, Abdullah ibn Umar, and he asks him, there was a fly, that came and, sat on his hand. And, he actually killed it. Now he began to think, is there a kafara for this? So he asked Abdullah ibn Umar, is there any kafara because I killed this mosquito or fly? After I had already worn my ihram, is there any kafara? And Abdullah ibn Umar replied him by saying that, look at these people of Iraq. They shed the blood of Rasulullah's grandson ungrudgingly, and now they're inquiring about if there's any kafara for killing a mosquito. And this notwithstanding, Rasulullah's statement that how much he loved Hassan and Hussein. This is what he said. Notwithstanding that he knew, people knew that how much Rasulullah loved Hassan and Hussein, still they did this, atrocious act. Now they're asking me if there's any kafara if I kill a mosquito. So this was, revolution had already begun, from the caravan of the survivors of, Karbala were being led as, prisoners in Bazaar of Kufa and Sham. I want to go, quickly, because I don't know how much time I have. I can take, okay, yeah, so it's okay, inshallah. Can we one salawat, please? Allahumma salli ala. So revolution had already, begun. From the time the caravan of the survivors of Karbala were now being led as prisoners through the bazaars of Kufa and Sham. Survivors were not allowed to cry. Yazid had arranged this to be the joyous occasion. He had decorated the streets, with flags, and it was a joyous occasion, for him. But when people came to know that these are, these are, from Ahlul Bayt, these are the children of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, now they understood, everything, in the time of, Umayyads in the beginning, Islam had eclipsed, totally. People had no, I told you, actually, yesterday, that there was so much pleasure, dances and music and parades, that even the time for adhan came, the masajid were giving the calls of adhan, and still nobody cared. It was that kind of situation. So, and now then what happened is, what actually changed when people came to know who these people are from Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Now they begin to think. Now there is a revolution that actually has started within them. Now they begin to cry. Now they begin to lament. Now they begin to blame quite openly Yazid and Umayyad, which they could not do before. Now people were shaking like leaf, before, in front of Umayyad, rulers. But now the change is now beginning. And the powerful speeches of Bibi Zainab al-Islam and Kulthum could never suppress the public opinion against the atrocities that were committed. And we are told at many places, people came out to offer armed resistance. These were the beginnings of revolution. Now, in 62 Al-Hijrah, a commission was led by Abdullah ibn Hanzala, and he sent to inquire into Yazid's character. What was Yazid's character? So they formed a commission to do a complete checking, complete thorough search on this. And they studied Yazid thoroughly. And now this is from the Tabari. Tabari is a very reputable Sunni source. He is actually telling us this, that they studied Yazid thoroughly and prepared a comprehensive report. And now they said, and I quote, they said, "We have come back from one who follows no faith. He drinks, he plays the tambour, he listens to music sung by female singers, he sports with dogs, and spends his time with drunkards and debauchees in idle chit-chat. We therefore disavow the allegiance that we had pledged to him." This is Tabari, volume number 7, page 54. And then Suyuti writes in his Tarikh al-Khulafa that the members of this commission also said, and I quote, "We elected to oppose Yazid when we apprehended that God's punishment, Allah's punishment, would assume the form of stones raining upon us from the sky, since he is one who deems it lawful to sleep with slave girls who had shared his father's bed, and with his daughters, and with his sisters, and he drinks, and he omits to say his prayers." So this then led to revolt in Medina. So when there was a revolt in Medina, Yazid sent his forces to Medina. And there was a big battle, as you know, it's called Battle of Harra. Battle of Harra, actually, they committed atrocities that you can't even think of. In Masjid al-Nabawi, they went and killed people. Actually, they opened the pregnant women, the womb, and they pulled the babies out. Allahu Akbar. The walls of Masjid al-Nabawi were splattered with blood. This is what Yazid did. Brutal suppression. It lasted for 3 days. And then in Makkah, he went against Abdullah ibn Zubayr. He sent his army, okay? And then, he actually ordered stones to be thrown to the Kaaba, and, torches with fire thrown. So, so abhorrence, there was abhorrence against all this. Now, for this, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, he flees from Basra, and on his way he hears a Bedouin. As he was fleeing to go to, from Basra, he heard a camel driver, in the desert, singing. What was he singing? And the words are, quoted. He was singing, he was doing the dua to Allah. He was saying, "Oh Allah, curse Ziyad and his Abdullah ibn Ziyad, curse Abdullah ibn Ziyad and his progeny, who put to the sword without any crime or fault on their part many Muslims who used to offer devotions regularly, who used to keep awake at night, and were, righteous and God-fearing people." There we saw that Yazid's son then refuses, the Khilafat. There was another event with one person doing his Hajj, and during the Tawaf, he saw someone lamenting, for the sins, and saying that, for the sins that he has committed, he will never be forgiven. He was lamenting, this person was lamenting as he was doing the Tawaf, that my sins will never be forgiven. And he was crying and doing his, tawaf. So the person who was behind him, he felt very surprised. That how can anyone not believe in the mercies of Allah and His forgiveness? So he decided to wait. he decided to wait and speak to that person when he gets a chance. And when he got the chance, he asked him, and the person replied by saying that he will never be forgiven. Allah will never forgive him. So this person insisted that can never be. Tell me, what is your sin? आपका गुनाह क्या था कि आप इतने परेशान हो क्या है? What is the reason? Tell me, what is your sin that you are saying that Allah cannot forgive you? And so he told him that he was in the army of Yazid in Karbala. When this person heard this, he told him, keep away from me. Keep away from me. Dur ho jao. I pray to Allah that when you are burned in Jahannam, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep him away, keep me away, from the fire in which you will be burning. So, there were so many other movements, I don't have too much time. There were so many other movements that arose. One was, Tawwabun. I told you that Tawwabun was a group of people who began to repent. Okay? So, this was the group that felt deeply ashamed because they neglected to go to the help of Imam Hussein. And they concluded to seek forgiveness from Allah by sincerely repenting and deal with all the assassins of the Imam to remove that stain in their lives. Initially, they actually proceeded, to their fight, and they actually fought, and then they were actually defeated. They wanted to be defeated because they wanted to do the tawbah. And they said, they thought that हमारे लिए तौबा यही होगा कि हम हमारी जान दे दें. So this was what they called, the Tawwabun. It was a big movement. So, now, what was the role of the fourth Imam? Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam. When all this movement was actually occurring, they went to the fourth Imam. They said, that you support us. You support us, we will defeat Umayyad, and there will be some justice done. But Imam Zain al-Abidin knew that these are all tricks. He wanted, Imam Zain al-Abidin also believed in revolution, but he believed in intellectual revolution. And he brought about intellectual revolution. In the beginning, people who supported him were few. But within only a few, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted him the longest imamat, 35 years of imamat after Karbala. So within a few years then, he became so popular that people were thronging after him. Once he had gone for Hajj, and, on that Hajj there was also, the prince who was also there. And, when he saw that this man who looks like fakir, when he said that people are actually moving away, they are giving him way, they are saluting him. So he asked, who is this man? And, his courier said, you don't know him? You don't know who he is? He is the first in the Fatima to Allah, can we one? Salawat, please. So, so Imam Zain al-Abidin did not actually join them, and he created intellectual revolution. And he succeeded. Another movement was Mukhtar. Mukhtar, rose up and he introduced, but what he did was, as we are told in the sources, that he also, introduced a new ideology, new movement. You see, I told you actually, yesterday that, that this is the first time that split occurred. So, here is the split, occurring. The Mukhtar is claiming Muhammad al-Hanafiya, who was the son of Imam Ali, but not through Bibi Fatima Zahra, but another Hanafi woman. His name was Muhammad al-Hanafiya. And so Mukhtar said that he is the rightly guided Imam. So this cause the first split now occurs. Okay, so it's the first split and that split. So that particular group is called Kaisaniya. So Kaisaniya sect was the first one. It was formed by the name of the person Amr bin Kaisan, who was a follower of Mukhtar. And he also introduced the belief at the death of Muhammad al-Hanafiya that he did not die. He said, no, he has not died, but he has gone on ghaiba, and that he will reappear at the time of the Mahdi. Then, the other movement was the movement of Mukhtar. So, I want to go, quickly now. The other, groups, that emerged were, the Zaydis. The Zaydis, accepted, legitimacy of the first two, Khalifa, but maintained that the rightful Imam was Imam Ali. Now, for us, the rightful Imam was his older brother, Imam al-Baqir, and then later his son, Imam Ja'far Sadiq, who were the rightful Imams. The other sect, that developed were Ismailis. So in Ismailis, immediately after the, passing away of, Imam Ja'far Sadiq, they said that, that the imamate should only go to the oldest son, and the oldest son was Ismail, although Ismail had already died. Imam Ja'far Sadiq, when he died, Imam Ja'far Sadiq made sure that people know. He ordered the body to be put on the bridge so everybody could see very clearly that Ismail had died. But they said, no, he's gone on ghaiba. So this is how Ismailis, came to be. The other section of where the Druzis, some other, later Shia, there was a sect, it's called Muhammisa, who actually believed, Panjatan Pak to be divine. Muhammisa, Khamsa and 5, Muhammisa, and also Mufawwida. So, there are many groups like this. So there was, turmoil, that occurred after, the Shahadat. But for us, alhamdulillah, we continued with the rightful Imams. I'm sure, that you've heard, that, the book by, Tajani, Samawi Tajani, then I was guided. Then I was, guided. So, at the University of Toronto, we had actually called him, and Maulana Rizvi was also invited as well. And, at that time, he was asked, what made you change from your Sufi tradition? And he said, that I wanted to know the real truth. I want to be on the right path. All the Muslims are on the right path, but I wanted to know exactly. So, I, studied, thoroughly. And I came to the conclusion that after the passing away of Rasulullah, we see a very clear line. After passing of Rasulullah, we have got a clear line. After that, it is Imam Ali and Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, a continuous line until the Ghaiba. When I looked at the other schools, those, they actually came about after many years, not immediately after the passing away of Rasulullah. So I wanted to follow a clear path, a path that takes me straight to Rasulullah and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that path I found in this. And that is the reason why I chose to become, that's how I was guided. He writes a book, then I was guided, Summa too. Okay, so, therefore, I want to end now, inshallah. So, for us then, the belief is, clear from the progeny of Fatul Zahra Sawalayha and Imam Ali ibn Talib that will arise, inshallah, soon the Imam Mahdi as the true Imam of mankind together with Nabi Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam, as we do the dua, hatta tuskinahu ardaka wa tumatti'u fiha tawila, inshallah wa ta'ala. But, let me tell you, that, this concept of Mahdi is not unique to Shia. I told you, that we have got injunction from Ayatollah Sistani and all the marja, that we have to be extremely, 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 extremely nice to all our Sunni brothers. We belong one people, one community, one people. As a matter of fact, there is a book by Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam. And in that book he says that if you pray behind the first line, behind the Sunni Imam, it is as if you prayed behind Rasulullah. It is so, we have got this, duty. And, if you look at the sources, then you find that, that the concept of Mahdi, Imam Mahdi is in all the fiqh, all the sources, all the Muslims. The main Sunni source tells us that Imam Mahdi will be from the progeny of Bibi Fatima al-Zahra and Imam Ali alayhi salam. Very clearly. So this is universal, prophecy that there will be Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, and it will be from the progeny of Bibi Fatima al-Zahra. Assalamu alaikum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this from us. I am very, very sorry. Forgive me. I have taken some time today more. Fi amanillah.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
ماشاءاللہ ڈاکٹر صاحب، خدا تعالیٰ آپ کو صحت و سلامتی دے. میں آپ مومنین سے پھر ایک دفعہ گزارش کروں گا کہ مل کے بلند آواز سے صلوات پڑھیے گا. محمد آل محمد. آج کے دن کی مناسبت سے بس ایک بند کے 6 مصرے اور پھر میں گزارش کروں گا اپنے بھائی عابد سے کہ آپ تشریف لائیے. قمر پرشاد مستر کا یہ مرثیہ ہے، اس میں سے بس ایک بند آپ کی سماعتوں کی نظر. کچھ تاریخوں کا حساب کچھ اس طرح سے رکھ کے انہوں نے آپ کے لیے یہ تبرک کیا ہے کہ تاریخ دوسری تھی کہ داخل ہوئے امام. تاریخ دوسری تھی کہ داخل ہوئے امام، اور 30 کی صبح کو آئی سپاہ شام. آنے کے شمر کے ہوئی دھوم دھام، تھی 5ویں کے دشتے ستم بھر گیا تمام. نرغا ہوا 6 سے شہ مشرقین پر، ہفتم سے بند ہو گیا پانی حسین پر. اسی کے ساتھ میں گزارش کروں گا اپنے بھائی عابد سے کہ آپ تشریف لائیے. محمد و آل محمد بلند صلوات.
ایک درود کا سہارا دیجیے گا. محمد و آل محمد. قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں بہت دیر لگی. قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں بہت دیر لگی. شے کو ایک چاند چھپانے میں بہت دیر لگی ہے قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں بہت دیر لگی ٹکڑے چنتے ہوئے قاسم کے کہا مولا نے ٹکڑے چنتے ہوئے قاسم کے کہا مولا نے ہائے افسوس کے آلے میں بہت دیر لگی ہے قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں بہت دیر لگی شے نے ہر لاش کو جلدی سے اٹھایا لیکن شے نے ہر لاش کو جلدی سے اٹھایا لاش اکبر کی اٹھانے میں بہت دیر لگی ہے قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں بہت دیر لگی ہائے اس قدر پیاس سے سوکھا تھا گلوئے اس قدر پیاس سے سوکھا تھا گلوئے سرور شمر کو تیغ چلانے بہت دیر لگی ہے قبر اصغر کی بنانے میں بہت دیر لگی اللہ لعنت اللہ علیہ قوم الظالمین. درود پر جی محمد والے.
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات.
پھر بھی درود پڑھ لیجیے. ایک منتظر اور درود پڑھ دیجیے پلیز. حسن کے سبز چمن کی بہار ہے قاسم. حسن کے سبز چمن کی بہار ہے قاسم. قسیم خلد کے دل کا قرار ہے قاسم. اور سر نفاق قلم سے جو کر گیا تھا قلم. سر نفاق قلم سے جو کر گیا تھا قلم. اسی دلیر کے ایک ذوالفقار ہے قاسم. ہے قاسم. اللہ صلی. جسے سنوارا تھا عباس سے بہادر نے. جہاد دین کا وہی شاہکار ہے قاسم. اور زمانہ کر نہ سکا ان کے ذکر کو پامال. زمانہ کر نہ سکا ان کے ذکر کو پامال. حسینیت کے حسین تاجدار ہیں قاسم. اور کوئی نجس نہیں جا سکتا کرب و بلا میں ظفر. کوئی نجس نہیں جا سکتا کربلا میں ظفر. بہشت کرب و بلا کا حصار ہے قاسم. صلو علی محمد و آل محمد. پھر بھی صلوات پڑھ دیجیے. مجرئی خلق میں ان آنکھوں نے کیا کیا دیکھا. مجرئی خلق میں ان آنکھوں نے کیا کیا دیکھا. پر کہیں سیبتے پیغمبر ثنایا کا دیکھا. مجرئی خلق میں نے دیکھا علم شاہ کو آلودہ ہوں. میں نے دیکھا علم شاہ کو آلودہ ہوں. میں نے عباس کو بے جان لب دریا دیکھا. مجرئی خلق میں. اور میں نے دیکھا علی اصغر کا گلا خون میں تر. میں نے دیکھا علی اصغر کا گلا خون میں تر. میں نے زخمی علی اکبر کا کلیجہ دیکھا. مجرئی خلق میں ایک گٹھری شہدی پشت پہ لائے جس میں شبیر تے پہنچن تو